Welcome to Whitecap, the Canadian Sailing Podcast. I'm Dave Krypton, longtime dinghy sailor and passionate fan of sailing in Canada. Today on this show, I'm super stoked to have Richard Clark, undoubtedly one of the most successful male sailors in Canadian history. 5-time Olympian in the Finn and Star class with Tyler Bjorn, 2-time Melges 24 World Champion, member of Ilbrook, winner of the 2001 Volvo Ocean Race. More offshore accolades than I could really mention, but we also have 3-time Bermuda race winner, and in 2019, he sailed on Wizard, which became the first boat to win both the Fastnet and the Caribbean 600 in the same year. Winner of Sail Canada's Jerry Roos Award, as well as Male Athlete of the Year and Rolex Sailor of the Year. Richard, welcome.
I think that's the Jerry Roos Award right there. Right there. A little red thing, a little red teardrop. Anyways,
nice.
What's behind me? Yeah.
Awesome. Most of all, now you're entering a very select group of sailors. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see what you think. What do you, Andy Roy, and Thomas Fogg all have in common?
Ooh. Wow. Stumped on the first question. I'm not doing very well. Thomas, Andy, and myself. I can't even speculate.
Well, this podcast is all about me, really. So you three have
we've all been on your show?
No. You've been on my show, and we've raced in a regatta together. So, and with you, 1986 youth, Canadian youths. I wasn't in the same fleet. You sailed lasers and won, and I was racing laser twos and came 24th out of 28 or something like that. Anyway, so let's go all the way back.
Vancouver?
Yeah, Kitsilano.
Yep.
So if we went all the way back to then, what do you remember about the Kitsilano youth, Canadian youths?
Oh, you don't want to know that story. I couldn't sail the last race because I was disqualified for an incident on shore. Can I just leave it at that?
Yes. In fact, I think
yes.
I remember it. We'll just leave it at that. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's what I remember. Obviously, winning that Youth Worlds was at the time. It was the accomplishment that I wanted in that time of my life to qualify and go to the Youth Worlds. So that was a big moment in my sailor development time.
Excellent. All right. So, and I remember it being pretty light, actually.
I remember being at light. I remember freighters near the race course.
Yes.
Distracting seals, popping up, things like that.
I remember a freighter
Yeah.
like it was a triangle course like back in the day, and I remember one of the freighters kind of swinging into the middle of the first reach. So you either got to go around it or behind it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do some short answer questions to start off. You ready?
Oh, yep. Hopefully they're not as hard as the first one.
Great. Okay. So favorite place you've ever sailed?
Ooh, I have lots of favorite places. Lake Garda. Boom. Just the word is the top to mind. Lake Garda, Long Beach, California in the spring. Kingston growing up. That was, I grew up in Toronto, and Kingston being the closest, best place to sail, and spent months, and I can't even tell you the total days I spent in Kingston. But, those would certainly, St. Margaret's Bay, we want to stayed on the domestic side of things. I love St. Margaret's Bay. One of my favorite places to sail. Have not sailed there enough.
Okay. I feel like, because I did get to race there this summer, it's hard to kind of visualize, but it feels like a video game almost, because it's perfect. Like the waves and the wind are perfect. You feel like you're in some kind of simulation. Next
just great,
question is
great people and great place.
Yeah, definitely. Dream race or regatta you'd like to sail in that you haven't yet?
Ooh, I like this one. I already know off the hop. Race to Alaska.
Oh, no way! Do you have
R2AK?
a plan?
Oh, I have 2.
I think I'm breaking news here.
Yeah, I'm very close to getting it all set up, and it's just a question of which boat. I've Race to Alaska goes by my backyard. I'll take you out to the window if you want, and I'll show you. But I could see most people just go outside Salt Spring and go up the strait, but. There are certainly the paddleboarders stop here on usually their first night. The I have two ideas. One is to do it within the very much the spirit of the race. There's a boat built in Europe called an XP20, and the boat's actually done the race before. It's a 20-foot sail rowboat,
Okay.
and I think for me, I spent so much of my life trying to win races, and everything's about winning and development programs and all the things that go into winning a race. But it'd be cool to do it in the adventure side, where an XP20 is probably gonna. Well, the last guys I think took 11 days on it, but I think they didn't sail any night time, so they stopped.
Oh,
they,
okay.
they stopped and either tied up to something and dropped the anchor. Uh, we would push through. But it'd be two people and just a great adventure and do it in probably 6 days. And if you look at actually in probably a bit naive on this, but you look at the results, maybe we might get the steak knives, maybe if you finish second. For those of you that know R2AK, it's 10 grand nailed to the dock for first and steak knives for second.
That's so
But we
cool.
certainly could do the first. There's also a sub award for the fastest boat under 20 feet. The other one is to think about doing it in a small, more adventurous way, but faster. Like do it in a Diam 24 trimaran would be a cool idea to do. Similar to the guys that did it in the Marstrom 32 when they won it. I think a
Okay.
Dime would be or a Diam, how you pronounce it. But yeah, race to Alaska.
A boat from history that you'd like to sail.
How, like my own history or pre me, pre my sailing?
Yeah, either
I'll
or.
spend
I was thinking.
any chance I get to get back on Comanche, but
Oh,
because
nice.
that's about the most. If you're going to get to what's my favorite boat ever to sail in my career, Comanche would be it. But I think my problem is I do have a lean to the modern and fast. So if I go too far back in time, the laboriously slow boats, but again, also having the opportunity to sail on the J class boats like Hanneman, the time that I spent on Hanneman,
Oh, wow.
beautiful, gorgeous. You walk around that boat. It's the only boat you ever go down below. I'm like, don't put any fingerprints on anything. Everything down here is so beautiful. Like, where can I? But also, in the same regard, just majestic and beautiful and cool to sail and
They sail those boats
scary at
so
times
hard
as well.
too. The J boats.
Oh yeah, yeah, there's definitely you think about when you sail boats like that, and even when you're sailing on boats like Comanche, where your loads start getting over 20 tons on like the runner and the headstay and other blocks, and you're just like, is this a safe place to stand? If anything breaks on this, am I going to die? You don't think about that a lot when you're sailing, but when you sail and you're pushing those J class boats so hard, yeah, they, yeah, if something does go wrong, it's can be pretty catastrophic. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
they look cool though. Okay, it's an acceptable answer. Um, if you were able to go back in time and race against your father, great Olympian John Clark, in a Finn match race, who would win in 1972?
I'd beat him on match race skills. He could, not that I've match raced very much, but my dad was, I think he and I both shared similar strengths. We're both really fast in a breeze. We both put fitness at a very high level in our preparations. And, certainly I would be interesting if we had a drag race out to the left corner and he was above me, who would flinch first.
Oh,
Yeah, because he could hang tough. He could certainly
oh,
hang tough.
would that you could do that. Did you do much sailing with him as a kid? You must have.
I certainly owe everything in my sailing career to my parents. Um, my dad built the first boat that I ever sailed by myself. A little, back in the day, a plywood opti. He actually built optis for all three of the children, my two sisters and myself, living on Toronto Island, and we'd have them just at the end of Oneida Street, at the lagoon side. And as I grew up and living on the island, the lake became, well, the lagoon was my playground in the beginning. It was like, yeah, you can sail in the lagoon, but don't go out into the harbor. When I was 3 or 4 years old, and then as I grew older and more experienced, my boundaries or my, the fence around where I could sail, let's say in the yard, let's call it, got bigger and bigger until when it was I could just go to anywhere I pleased as long as I didn't leave the gaps on either side and just sailed within the
Okay.
harbor. So, certainly, and we had a Shark 24 that, believe it or not, all five of us crammed into and sailed to like Kingston.
Oh, wow.
think I was sleeping as a baby in a hammock in the companionway, just swinging back and forth. So, I have, this is supposed to be the short answer section because I could go back
That's
to
fine.
say that I'm
It's
a
fun
son of
because
a
the
son
short
of a
answer
sailor.
kind of gets medium answer, and then we get into things that I wouldn't know we
Meter
would have.
answer,
But
long
anyway,
answer. But both my grandparents died at sea. Like, you want to go back to the crazy
wow.
history that I have in sailing. And when I sailed around the Horn, I was following in the footsteps of my great grandfather, who sailed tall ships from England to Australia and back. So yeah, my mother, my parents met sailing. Um, the sneaky one apparently is I got conceived on a boat, but I don't even know if that's let's just leave that one. Edit. Um, but but yeah, it's some press leading up to one of the games basically said I had salt water running through my veins, and that just goes to history and how fortunate I was to have the upbringing I had.
That's great. My dad used to when I had a rowboat, he tied a clothesline to a tree and to the stern of and I could only row as far as the clothesline went. I'd row as hard as I can, bonk, every time. But anyway,
You should put it on bungee so you could have a little bit of incentive to grow the
exactly.
bungee
That's
slightly.
a good idea. Oh well. So you have a role model, a sailing role model?
Sailing role model. Um, I don't think I do. I certainly look up to, um, certainly growing up, plenty of role models. Terry Nielsen, the Kidd brothers. You look at those Olympians, anybody that was a Canadian Olympian, Tam Matthews, Jay Cross. Um, they would have been my role models growing up. That's everything that everything that they were doing was what I wanted to do. My dream, probably inbred in me since my dad went to the Olympics in 1972, was to win a gold medal at the Olympics. That not just go to the Olympics, but win a gold medal was my dream. And those sailors I just mentioned, obviously Terry and Frank McLaughlin and Terry McLaughlin and I think that the endless list of Canadians that went to the Olympics in the 70s, 80s, and were those sailors that I looked up to.
Still no gold medals, but we keep going.
Yes, yes, and
Um,
we could have a whole chapter in this about my Olympic experience and my thoughts on
we
thoughts
will.
and
We will.
regrets. Okay, there we go. I'll save it.
um, so let's see. Do you have any superstitions about sailing?
No bananas on boats.
I don't know. You tell me.
You haven't heard that one? No bananas on a
No.
boat. You know
No.
why?
Why?
So the obviously sailing superstitions go back to the tall ship days, most of them, right? I don't know why leaving on a Friday or whistling or saying rabbits or something or women, all those things. But the bananas on the boat is actually is a true no-no in the tall ship days because bananas and what is the gas that they produce that ripens everything around it. So you imagine if you have bananas in your hold with all this other stuff that you're trying to keep for months at sea as you transit Atlantics or oceans or whatever it is, the bananas would spoil everything in the hold. So bananas became banned on boats. Bananas became bad luck on boats. So um, in my Olympic days and certainly my youth days, I had all sorts of superstitions that were like, left boot first, Gretzky type superstitions. But over time, I realized that whatever boot I put on first didn't really affect my performance. If I had a bad day, you'd be like, how much energy and mental anguish are you wasting in your, pre-race routine over a superstition? So I kind of put all those behind me until I hopped on Ilbrook and with a bunch of Kiwis and was in charge of the food program and probably showed up one day with a stack of bananas and they were like, no. So no bananas.
No bananas. Good. That's a good one. Got kids. No bananas on boats. Yeah. Can you have it on your coach
Yeah,
boat's boat?
you probably could.
Okay.
Unless
Good.
you believe that
You
your
get
coach affects your performance, and then you believe your coach affects your performance. So maybe no
right.
bananas.
You need that potassium, kids. All right, so let's get into the Olympic career. I thought a way to get into it might be to talk about your relationship and competing against Hank Lammons. So we're
Mm.
talking
Hmm.
about a man who won the Finn Gold Cup 2 years in a row, and then like early '90s through mid '90s, maybe there's a shift in there. So yeah, tell me about that early '90s
Absolutely.
to '96.
Yeah, I certainly owe a lot to Hank. I certainly was very fortuitous, and we hear this term that comes out sometimes as a lucky accident. And I think a lot of sometimes within our country we produce sailors that come to this a system that is imperfect, and we still produce talent with it. And I had the opportunity to just right place, right time. So much of I could actually look at various aspects of my sailing career to peg a few right place, right time moments. And obviously, when you get those moments, you have to make the best of those moments as well. But yeah, coming out of the youths in '86, doing a couple of year laser program after that, but that day laser was not in the Olympics. And with the Olympics and winning that gold medal at the Olympics being my dream to my life at that point goal, that I had to transfer to something. I tried a brief FD program, and that didn't really suit my skill sets and also budget.
Yeah, of
So
course.
the Fin was the natural thing. I was not to get too deep into my family, but a little reluctant to follow in my father's footsteps. Wanted to kind of do my own thing, my own way,
Of
and but
course, yeah.
genetics made it so that yeah, I was bigger and just more suited to the Fin. Got into the Fin at a time when, for me it was 1989, 1990 when I got into the Fin, and that was the time that Hank won his worlds in 90. What was it, 1991?
I
And
think,
not only
yeah.
was there Hank, there was Larry Lemieux, there was Mike Milner, there was Gordy Anderson. Those and also Mark Lemons, and so there was. I think my first worlds that I did in Greece in 1990, the one that Hank won the first time, there were five Canadians in the top 16.
Yep. I just
I
looked at
think
it
I
this
was probably
morning.
just, what did I finish?
I think you were
No,
17,
no,
actually,
no,
to be honest. You should know.
uh,
And there
I
was,
should
well,
know.
it was,
I don't even think I was
I mean, that
that
was a
high,
100
probably,
years
but
ago.
it was, yeah,
But
yeah. So super lucky,
there were
and
three in the
and
top five. There was
yes,
Larry, Hank, and Mike Milder were
and Mike.
all in the top
Yep.
five. And then I think you and Gordy were the next
Hmm.
two, somewhere in the 15 to 20-ish. But
And me at whatever I was, 22 at that point in my life, and just super fortunate. And Hank was great. Hank was great as far as here, Richard, here's a sail you can use, like
wow.
really helping me. And here, use this mast, and he used this sail. And yes, I had a boat, and was very fortunate that through Ontario Sailing they had some of the 1984 Olympic boats.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got a boat through Ontario Sailing. I got gear supplied. They're very, very helpful in just fostering my development. And it was great. And then as I got better, as I could add more as a training partner for Hank and I were training partners through to the even in 1992, I was an alternate at those Olympics to help Hank out. And then post 92, I put in, my goal was always 96, and Hank and I trained together very, very well until it started to get contentious. Until it's like, okay, I came third at the Worlds in '93, and it was like, okay, I was a little nipper, young, little training partner. It's like, let's help him out. And then, now, okay, now we're both at the top of the game. Let's keep helping each other out. And now, Richard becomes a threat, and let's stop training together. Well, we pushed that into as far as we could in its natural progression, and then we kind of parted ways. And I hooked up with Craig Monk in New Zealand, and spent a lot of time down in New Zealand training with him, leading up to those trials, which was obviously a very hard fought event with still Mike and Larry there as well at a very high level. And um, yeah, I was fortunate to win those trials.
Are you guys tight still, you and Hank? Or? I mean, not tight still. Are you okay with each other now?
We're okay with each other now. We're friends now. Certainly when we see each other. I haven't seen Hank for a while. He was sailing Etchells for a bit when I was sailing Etchells, the Newport Worlds about 5, 7 years ago, whenever that Newport Worlds was in the Etchell. So we'd see him off and on, and yeah, certainly a handshake and a hug and a great to see you and let's catch up. How's the families? Things like that type of
Okay.
thing. Yeah, we're we're definitely past that, past
And
past the old
remind
history.
me, okay, remind me in 92, did he forget a life jacket or something? One of the races? Is that,
Oh, you dig deep into all these. Yes, he
I
got
was 21 years old
disqualified.
then. I was following this stuff religiously. So
So
anyway,
it sounds like the world's stupidest mistake. And back in those days, a life jacket was not required to be worn. It was only required to have on board. It didn't have to meet any specifications. It didn't have whatever the flotation specifications are of life jackets nowadays that you're required to wear. So it was literally the smallest, lightest, littlest life jacket, and you just stuffed it almost in an inspection port, just so it was on board the yacht. And so at the Olympic supplied boats, we transferred all the kit from his his race boat to the supplied Olympic boat, except that life jacket thing. And it wasn't obviously in any of our checklists or things to even on our radar. So yeah,
okay.
at the end of the first or the second race, he got spot checked and didn't have life jacket on board the boat.
Listen, first off, Hank Lamons, you are a hero of mine. I raced Cork against Hank a couple of times. I'm not trying to. I saw you play hockey in my hometown. So Hank Lamons,
Right.
no shade. So
And that's
yeah,
why I was trying to say is it's not the same mistake you would make today. It's just back in those it was just different back then, and it wasn't really a required piece of kit that you were had on your body.
yeah. I mean, I've sailed Snipes recently, and they don't have it as a class rule. It just has to be on the boat. And I couldn't do it. It felt like I was naked. Like, I'm going to fall overboard and die without this life jacket. So all the Brazilian guys are just wearing banana hammocks, nothing else.
Of course,
Um,
of course.
so then let's talk about the 96 games then. You probably didn't have a
Hmm?
lot of pressure on you for that, or I don't know. You tell me.
There was always pressure. If you want to talk about all my Olympics, it's probably one thing that I didn't handle very well was the pressure. And when you are a Canadian sailor, you before podcasts and things like this, where we can promote sailors domestically, you operated in a media vacuum, and no one really outside the sailing community knew what you were up to. And then you go to the Olympics, and next thing you know that there's that media focus that comes along with it. There is for me, it was a perceived national pressure to perform.
Mm,
There's also as you compile donors and sponsors, and whether it's corporate or just individuals, there's the pressure to perform because people invested in you.
hmm
And again, these are all self perceived, but for me, they were one of those things that certainly weighed on me in the
hmm
pressure to perform side of things. So going into '96, the pressure to perform. Sure, it's internal. I have a goal to win a gold medal, and we through my support staff of Ken Dool and a guy named Jeff. What's Jeff's last name? He's moved to
I don't
Australia now.
know.
We had a sailmaker on site. So because we could develop our own sails, we built a sail loft in the garage of the house we were staying at. Sports psychology, the exercise physiologists, things like that, support team that you have, that one you get through just being involved in an Olympic program and what it's going to be for all Canadian sailors, but also things that we did individually. So yeah, there was certainly the pressure was there, and for me, the global ranking was decently high. The performance in the other events decently high. Was I a quote unquote favorite going into those games. Probably not on the, if you looked at, if there was betting back then and the bookies were trying to rank who was the, who were
Do
the
you
medal
think we
favorites. I
could
probably
do a
wasn't
bet?
one, but I
We
was
could bet
close.
on the Finn Olympics now. You think we could get a prop bet going for,
You
Bet
could get,
MGM or whatever they
I'm
do?
sure if, well, I'm sure there are countries that you can. I don't know whether we
Yeah.
can here, uh, but yeah, and were there mistakes in that buildup? For sure. What did I? There's probably a bit of a theme that goes through this Olympics into the next Olympics was is just trying to find the silver bullet, the magic sauce, the special speed.
Yep.
The other thing that comes with qualifying for Olympics is money. It was one of those things
Hmm.
through most of my, and thank you to everybody who donated and helped me out along the way. I would not be here without you either, and I wouldn't be able to go to the Olympics. But once you qualify, there is a bit of funding that pops up, and next thing you're like, woohoo! I could go experiment and make the fastest sail in the world.
Right.
And sticking to the '96 games, the conditions there were supposed to be moderate sea breeze, mid-teens, and in those conditions, I was blazingly fast. And unfortunately, during the games, it was a little light. Unfortunately, too little, too late. The last race to the Olympics was in those perfect conditions, and I won the race by half a leg. Uh, but too little, too late. I had opportunities. I was in the top three after the first 2 days, and then got OCS'd, black flagged, and in a race, and things. I would, you go, oh, it's my first Olympics.
Well, that's why I
There'll be
said that
others.
about like not having the pressure. Now I feel really bad that you. Of course, you felt
Yeah.
pressure. You're going to the freaking Olympics. Um, but
You're getting also insight into my person, insight to who at least I was at that time, and yeah, yeah. So that was a little unfortunate, I guess, and but lessons
uh,
were learned that I tried to then take into 2000.
I was gonna say, yeah, like I think some people have said, and it probably is more important now because, like you're saying about the media situation, because people say that you have to have gone once just to know what you're dealing with. That's what I've heard people say, like to know that you're going to get, microphones stuck in front of you. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
people with
Yeah.
flags on their boats and stuff like that. And then once you've done that, and then you kind of know what you're getting into a little more. You can think about it as much as you want, but if you haven't experienced it, this is from the outside. I don't know what I'm talking about. But would you say that is something?
Well, you're 100% correct. I mean, it's not just the media; it's the security, it's the food, it's the accommodation, it's the yeah. There's so much to the Olympics that are different than any event that we ever do. So yeah, I'm 100% a believer, and that an Olympic campaign is an 8-year campaign. It's not a 4-year campaign.
Right, right. So yeah, so going into 2000, then tell me about that event.
Yeah. So the build up from '96 to 2000. It, that was yeah, a lot of things sort of changed in my life. um, Slightly then, moved to Vancouver, and took a job with North Sales in Vancouver is why I moved out. And yeah, I was sort of spent a year and a bit sort of figuring out what I wanted to do, and
Hmm.
the job with North Sales didn't really pan as North Sales wanted it in Vancouver. They didn't think they needed two salesmen, so they offered for me a chance to move to um, San Francisco. And I met my wife to be, who had a job at UBC in Vancouver, and she just got a promotion in her research unit the same day I was offered the job to move. And I was like, "Yeah, I don't really like selling. I'm not really a good salesman." I walk up to somebody would ask me about a sale, and I go look at their boat, and like, "You don't need a new sail. You're just fine in the sailing that you do with this old old moldy piece of cloth. You'll be just fine." I was just not a very good salesman. So
Okay.
I quit the top North Sales, and said I want to go back to the games. I got unfinished business there. So did like a 2.5 year build up into those games, and was ranked number one in the world going into it in the spring of 2000. The Sydney Games, just because of a Southern Hemisphere Games, was later in the year, And so yeah, I won Yare, I won Spa, a bunch of the grade one events, and was yeah. So ranked number one going in, and was selected very early as well in the way that the trials were at that stage because I'd been third at the Worlds in '99, and if you were a medalist at the Worlds in the year before the Olympics, you got selected. So I was actually selected in January of 1999 for a fall 2000 Olympics, and
So that
in
was
the
something then.
developing side of
Being selected
yeah,
early added pressure as well, or just changed that. If you were getting selected
being
later,
selected,
go ahead.
yes, being always selected later for me would be better. I just again went down the rabbit hole with some performance stuff that like at the end of the Olympics, some of my competitors walked up to me and said, "What were you using? That stuff you had in the spring, which was just stock off the shelf." Again, like I said, I qualified early, so there was some money there, but I was still running a basic kit. And then the summertime, when there wasn't much racing going on, and I teamed up with Russ Silvestri from San Francisco, who won the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. trials. I helped him as his training partner to win his trials. And then I went, we just went training in San Francisco, and we went down a pathway of developing some equipment that, this is like deja vu from '96, that proved to be probably not quite as quick as we hoped it had. It tested well, right? Another lesson that painfully has to be learned over and over again is that some stuff that tests well in training doesn't race well.
Mm.
And yeah, like the sail was so light that it wouldn't even last the whole event. So I measured in two of the exact same sails. Some guys had
Oh
a heavy
wow.
sail and a light sail. I just had two of the exact same sails. So halfway through, I would change to the other one because,
Like an
yeah,
F1 car, you
yeah,
just change the tires.
yes, yeah, very much so. So and yeah, there was a lot of lessons I learned about myself in those 2000 games about who I am as a sailor athlete, and um, I probably didn't learn those. Probably the lessons really resonated later on, probably for me in the later 2000s. Really understand what makes me tick as
Mm-hmm.
a sailor and a racer type of thing. But yeah, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me to be
Mm.
ranked number one in the world and to have that be yeah, such a poor result.
That does sound like it sounds like exactly what you said.
One of
Sounds
the lowest
heartbreaking.
moments of my life was going to those um, that medal ceremony, right?
Uh,
You have to go as a competitor to support those who did win and to be a
mm.
sportsman, but it's the last thing I wanted to do. And I really have meant to do this, and I don't know where I have stashed it, but I did write a letter to all my supporters after that games.
Mm-hmm.
That was somebody said, "Wow, I can't believe you put that all out there." It was a pretty heartfelt and I wish I could locate it because it was a very emotional time for
Mm.
me.
Mm. Have you processed it now? I mean, how you feel about that
Oh, very
now? It
much so.
must.
Yeah, I'm proud of my Olympic accomplishments. They weren't what I wanted them to be, and that's the hard thing to be a five-time Olympian, which is actually technically four because I was an alternate in Barcelona. So I did get to go, but so really as a four-time Olympian competitor, um, yeah, that's a proud accomplishment. But
Sure.
still, it is a stain um, on in as I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, what was expected of me as well. Um, which rightly so, right? When you have an athlete in this country that's ranked number one going into the Olympics, you expect them to have whatever sport that they're in. You
Yep.
expect them to walk away with a medal, and I didn't achieve those external or internal expectations. But yeah, what did I learn? And you learn more about. For me, obviously, I've been very let's say up front, talking about the technical side and the mistakes I made in equipment. But if I'm honest with you, in that time where I was, and I think psychologically, I wasn't mentally tough enough. I wasn't mentally tough enough to deal with the pressure that I put upon myself. That pressure I put, yes, there's pressure at the Olympics, and the strength of a good top level Olympic athlete is to understand that those are external pressures and they're not the pressure that you put upon yourself. And through me of just, since a toddler, I wanted to win an Olympic medal. The internal pressure I put upon myself. I went off the start line in the first race at that 2000 Olympics, and my legs were physically shaking,
Oh,
and I could not calm them down.
oh,
It was a head case. And I had my own
man.
sports psychologist that I brought in to deal with that, and tried everything that I could do to deal with that. But yeah, it was pressure for me has been my ability to cope with the pressure I put upon myself has
Hmm.
been the handicap that had stopped me from performing above anything else in my career.
Well, you know what? I couldn't do this right now, but if I was going to put a list of whoever raced in the 2000 Olympics, Richard Clark is still in the game. He's still making money as a coach, as a sailor. He's doing what he loves. I don't know about those other guys, but
Yeah.
you're still in the game, man. I'm proud of you, Richard.
Well, I thank you. And it's, it's, I don't want everyone to walk around and go, oh, Richard Clark's a head case. I never want to hire him again. It's taken me a while to realize where my strengths are,
Hmm.
and to realize that pressure is from myself. And if I can, it's taken me years, and we wish that we could tell our younger selves things in so many ways, and there's
Hmm.
certainly, I wish I could go back in time and be that. Was I in 2000? I was almost a 32-year-old in 2000. To
Hmm.
yeah, I'm a way better sailor, and my mental strength is way higher now than it ever was. And I'm also realizing that, if we skip to this whole thing, and why am I such a good sailor now, is because I am really great at being part of a team,
Hmm.
and being even a leader of a team, or an integral part of a team. And that's where that I thrive, and uh, I relish these opportunities to function within great teams. But to be the team, to be the one,
Exactly.
that's when, um, yeah, it breaks down a bit for me.
It's like you said, like to put pressure on yourself, but now you have all these other people that take it as well, right? So it's like you say, if you're the only thing that's getting all the pressure, but you clearly you're very good at like preparing. I've seen in the interviews I've read and stuff like that. Preparation is like the most important thing, right? So if you're doing that, you're putting pressure on yourself. You're putting pressure on other people so that you can share it when you get to the event.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and not only share, but support.
Hmm.
Right? It's that support that you get from being surrounded by quality people who also share and understand it, those pressures as well, is a, yeah, go, which, well, I was going to say, is an opportunity I have now, that great luxury to have great programs and great owners and great sailors that I am involved with on a daily basis, is such a privilege.
Right. Well, let's get into something that happened soon after the Sydney Games. It was sounds like it was a ton of fun. You got involved with the Volvo Ocean Race and John Kostecki. So tell me about how that came about.
So yeah, John Kostecki, or JK as his nickname is. I met JK when I was training with Russ Silvestri in San Francisco, and Russ had I think actually maybe it was St. Francis Yacht Club had a fundraiser for all the St. Francis or local San Francisco Olympians that were going. So I was training in San Francisco at the time. I went to this fundraiser with Russ, and there at the fundraiser was John Kostecki, and he came up to me and he introduced himself and said he had heard promising things about me through Russ, who was a friend of his, and also Kimo Worthington, who was coaching Russ at the same time. So Jake asked if I was interested in trying out for his Volvo team. The Ilbert program had been involved, I think, for a year and a half or longer at that point in their preparation with the two boats bought from the previous race, the two EF boats. And I hadn't done any offshore sailing. I'd done some bigger boat, Mum 36s and other things, but certainly never gone offshore anything but an overnight on Lake Ontario, like a Susan Hood race or something, right? Um, and yeah, so when my Olympics went sideways on me in 2000 and it was coming up to the close of those games, there's probably still a race or two left. I was like, what am I going to do when I go home? I have no
Mm.
money. Um, I am crushed as an individual and a sailor. I'm feeling as the lowest of the low of I could possibly be, and looking for what am I going to do. I'm like, there's this business card. Maybe I'll try this Volvo tryout out. So, yeah, JK said yes, and I went to Fremantle, Australia, for a 6 week job interview, and was out of my league element, everything possible. I remember my first day sailing on a Volvo 60, and I think we got the spinnaker up and full stack, and these legends like Ilbert program. There were just the legends of offshore sailing on that program at the time. Stu Benentine, the King of the South, Mark Christensen, Ray Davies, John Kostecki, Juan Vilas, Navigator, um, Jamie Gale, Ross Hallcrow is the trimmer. So many great people. And if I've left you out and you're watching this, I know those other guys, I love you all, and you all were top notch to be coming in. But yeah, I didn't know anything. As we're cruising along with the spinnaker up, and one of the guys is like, "Hey, new guy, Richard," and pardon the term here, I might have to bleep this out, but it's like, "Can you tighten the down, fucker?" I was like, "What?" Okay, yeah, I got this, as you would say, right? I got this. Yeah, I could got tighten that. You go to the pit, right? And there's like 20 jammers. You're like, which one of these? Hey, one's labeled down, fucker. All right,
Oh
put it
my
on the winch,
god.
crank it down. He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, that's good. I was like, what did I just do? It's yellow. It goes forward. Turns out it's the fore guy. Let's say on your spinnaker pole. All
Okay.
right, that's what the or the kicker if you're Australian.
Right. The
Um,
downhaul sort
it's
of,
it's
right?
just it's just a downhaul, right? The fore guy, the downhaul. But because it was used for also code zeros at that time that weren't on a spinnaker pole, they labeled it the DF. So there was all sorts of stories in that build up where I was just like, oh, I don't know anything. We had these big morning meetings, and in those morning meetings, it'd be like, because we're preparing, one of the objects of this training session was to go to the Southern Ocean, go straight from Fremantle, go due south into the Southern Ocean, blast through the Southern Ocean for 6 days, and then go due north once you're kind of in line with New Zealand to get up to Auckland. So we're preparing for this offshore session, and there was lots of work to do to the boat and various departments, and it was like morning meetings. Okay, we got to service the hydraulics. As I'm sitting on my hands, I know nothing about hydraulics. We have to do some splicing. We have to do some this and all this technical stuff. It's like, wow, we should probably service the head.
Oh,
I can
nice.
probably figure that one out. It's like, give me, I should be on that show Dirty Jobs, right? I'd be like, oh, I got give me just the worst of the worst jobs, right? So I take the, put the gloves on. I'm like, I don't know how to turn it. I'm like, just keep on doing these hose clamps and clean out these hoses, right? I don't know. So I'll figure that one out. We're going to do a left curve change on the main. We need someone to like pick all the seams. I'm like, oh, I know how to do a left curve on it. Thin main, so how hard can it be? So you just add for all these, we help with the food program. I like food. I can figure that out. So yeah, but yeah, my tryout went a bit sideways when we
Oh,
went to this offshore thing that I was trialing out for a driver trimmer,
okay.
and so we beetle off due south. And I think my first night at sea, and I'd never been on a boat where I couldn't see land, and I was a bit out of my element. And Stu Banentine's driving, and he's like, "Hey, Richard, why don't you come back and drive for a bit?" And we got everyone's favorite spinnaker up. It's called the A9. this little fractional little handkerchief of the thing as we're blast reaching along, and everyone's just loving life, fully ballasted up. And so yeah, Stu's like, yeah, okay, I'm doing 68 apparent at about 135 true, doing about between 80 and 90 heading, and et cetera, et cetera. I was like, okay, I got this. Driving with the wheel. He's like, what was he driving to? I'm looking down, like, you get boat speed, and the next one down, each on the boat speed's apparent wind angle. I'm like, oh yeah, that's apparent. What do you say? Oh, 60 something? Okay, I'll just sort of, I started to spear all over the ocean chasing the apparent, it's like, down a wave, the apparent goes forward, bear away, and
Right,
then the
right, right.
apparent,
Of course,
light
yeah.
go after, head up. Next thing, I'm doing these massive S turns, and I sure at one point, I just got low and slow, so I just wick it up to chase the apparent forward again. And I was like, what was this true wind angle he was sailing at? I looked down, it was like 118 or something, and the boat just boom in a full broach, kite explodes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so that was bad. So then I bury away the boat and we pull down the kite, and Stu comes back and says, I think you've done enough driving for one night.
Oh jeez.
Kind of
Really? He
slink
said those
back and
words?
help. Oh yeah, yeah. I slink back and kind of maybe help put the new sail up, because I was also one of my other positions was mid bow, which is a crazy thing to think of me up there in the foredeck. But so yeah, she went forward and helped plug in. I think we just put up some sort of reaching jib, and the next day we're blasting along with that same reaching jib, and I'm grinding, which helped for me because I was pretty beastie after my Olympic training, so I was in still really top
Right.
shape. Yeah, my wife remembers those days when I had 34-inch thighs, but the yeah, so uh, I'm I'm grinding, and one of the guys passes up the food pot that's full of this congealed freeze dried from last night because it's time to make lunch. So I'm sitting by the primary pedestal with the primary winch right beside me. So I get this food pot, and back in those days, we used like a pressure cooker, like a
Okay.
heavy, proper pot. And I look at it, I'm like, wow, it's full of like this basically slime. And so I get a little water in the pot and I give it a little swirly swirl. And I'm just going to like, and all the contents will go out, and I'll twirl it again. So I go for my first, and of course, with my cold hands, the pot just goes,
Oh my
and I throw the
god.
pot over the side of the boat. Our only way to make food.
So now
At
you've
ours,
ripped their
basically,
favorite spinnaker and
yeah,
you've made it impossible
yeah,
to eat.
I bas- yeah, yeah, yeah. So I, I just, I sat with my
Uh,
head in my hands, and I'm like, what have I done? This, I guess, can I be teleported out of here? This is not going very well. And this is when you start understanding little things about being involved with a good team. What's the first thing you hear? Absolute hysterical laughter.
okay.
You're not going to believe what he just did. Like, people are absolutely almost on the ground. They are laughing so hard. And yeah, yeah. So I figured, okay, if I got a shot at anything here, one we're in a bit of a pickle because we got to eat. We still have another 5 days at least of this trip. So I was like, I got this. I got this. So I zipped down below because I figure I got to fix this. And then, like I said, back in those morning meetings where I didn't know anything, one of the things I had my hand up for was the food program. So I was involved with the packing of the food. I knew what exactly we had on board. So I was like, I got this. So I'm down there. I'm like, okay, freeze dried food. What do you need? You need hot water. The thing that saved us is we had a kettle for the coffees. So I'm like, step one, hot water, get the kettle boiling. Step two, I got to make it in something. I'm like, what am I going to make the food in? Well, early, like I said, it was windy, and there's a fair bit of water on deck, and then a lot of that water gets down below, no matter how offshore suited your boat is. And by my feet on the bilge on the leeward side was the bailing bucket.
Aha.
Hmm, that's a that's a container. So yeah, use the bailing bucket, put the freeze dried in it. Well, cleaned it at first, of course. And then
Of
I'm like,
course.
well, how can we make this so this is going to be usable? So I went into the rigging kit and I got some rope out and I kind of made it so you could tie it easily to the side of the galley. And then I poured the hot water in, the freeze dried, mixed it up. I'm like, well, now we got to keep this warm while it rehydrates. What can I use? Well, we had these big foil packages that the freeze dried came in because there were six, basically for half the crew. And I put that on top with a bit of bungee and went back on deck and told the boys that lunch would be ready and watch change right on time. And what the coolest
Excellent.
thing is about it is um, to obviously make this story not take up our entire show is when I got to Auckland, I figured out how to drive by that point and trim and do all the things, and I was at least a decently fast learner. So when I got to Auckland, they offered me a contract. But back in those days, weight's always important when you're offshore.
Mm-hmm.
Extra weight is dragging a boat. So, but particularly in those Volvo 60 days, we were fastidious about keeping the boat as light as possible. So actually, in the performance improving, I got rid of that big, heavy pressure cooker pot because I realized we didn't have to actually cook the freeze dried. You just had to reheat the and constitute
Ah,
the freeze dried. So no more heavy pot, little lightweight cooler, performance gain,
that's amazing.
and that's
You invented
and that's
something.
how every I did invent something. So, and every offshore race I've ever been on since then, and now worldwide, we just use some sort of cooler. Well, now we just eat them out of the bag. We don't even gotten to that
Okay.
point. No, we used to have one of those Coleman drink coolers with a little spout on the
Oh,
bottom.
sure.
We just seal the spout off from the little big screw top. We use that for a long time, the small ones, and then um,
And they didn't
yeah,
call
that's how
that
we
the
used to eat
Clarky or
offshore. And
anything
now we
like
just eat
that?
out of it. Unfortunately, no.
So, well, tell me about the race then. The Volvo Ocean Race 2001.
Well, again, what a luxury to be on a great program and with great sailors, and to become an integral part of that team, to be one of the four primary drivers. And the ocean race and the Volvo Ocean Race is what an incredible race it is. It's I think if I think about the taglines that are in my head through that whole thing, the tagline for the Volvo Ocean Race was life at the extremes, and it truly is life at the extremes. But you think of extreme, you think of extreme cold waves, Southern Ocean, all that stuff. But it was extreme for me in terms of emotion, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
everything from the absolute like hot, going through the doldrums and the tropics of just baking in a pool of sweat, and you get down below and you crawl in your bunk and it's wet from the other guy's sweat, not because it's like wet because of the salt water. And those are things to actually, the Southern Ocean with water temperature in 3 degrees and snow on the deck, and back in those days with no ice limits, dodging 28 icebergs on one leg from um, I think it was the Auckland to Rio leg, like big bergs. And yeah, definitely I did snow angels on the deck and those sorts of things. And so that, the extreme temperatures to the extreme, like from terror to boredom, those extremes, to despair, to elation, like those were the extremes. The ocean race for me in that first time was every extreme in all fronts of things. And it was certainly it's a long event, obviously, 9 months going around, and I had I had pain and broken bones, um, cuts, virus, massive illness. Like we had it all.
Tell me the difference between like the effort or the how hard it is to wake up every day and make the boat go fast for all your shifts versus trying to go out and do really well in a fin for 5 day regatta or something like that.
Yeah, it's so similar yet so different. The difference of sleeping the 8 hours in your bed versus lucky if you get 4 hours
Mm.
in your bunk. Particularly in the Southern Ocean when it takes you 25 minutes to get all your clothes off and on again and trying to get some food in you. We joke and people say, "How do you sleep offshore?" Well, you sleep because you're exhausted. Um,
Right.
but getting up to do your 4 hour shift and it's amazing. There's less and less opportunities nowadays. We think about most of the offshore races that at least I'm doing are 600-mile, 2.5 day sprints in the boats that I'm doing them on,
Okay.
and we're doing we're getting ready for the Caribbean 600 coming up in a little over a week's time, when we'll do a 4 on 2 off program, and maybe you might get into that for maybe a day, if you're lucky. Like the middle part
Okay.
where you sort of can settle in. But yeah, getting up and getting motivated, day in, day out. It's amazing what a 4 hour watch slides into in perceived time. The next thing you know, you're coming to the end of it, and you think, "Wow, I've barely got on deck." When you're doing a 4 hour session, again, you ask me what's ideal time on the water. Training session, you wouldn't train ever longer than 3 hours personally, but
Right.
like you said, if you're doing a race day and they're going to give you 3 races and you leave the dock at 9 and you come back at 4, well, yeah, it's a bit longer.
Right. I mean, you went from a. I'm just thinking as we're talking here, like you went from a class, like if you go from lasers to fins, and you're basically sailing the same boat for however many long, 15 years or whatever, and you know everything down to the millimeter, everything on that boat. Now you get thrown into this program, you don't even know like where where the
Lines
head
I'm
is or
pulling
whatever.
on.
You don't even know. Yeah, exactly. You don't know what the downfucker is. Like, so
Yeah.
it must have been such a different. Did you feel like that was like kind of like freeing, like just kind of throwing all that stuff off of you a little bit to get into something, and you're going from zero to the top of that sport in a year, pretty much of that kind of that race, the Volvo Ocean Race.
Yeah, yeah, but the freeing part of it, I guess, if you use your words, would be that I was just surrounded by such talent and such people to teach me. I I joke with Stu Bannatyne every time I sail with him, and we sail. I have the luxury and privilege of sailing with him a lot, and he was one that taught me everything about offshore driving. And yet here we are as teammates now, 25 years later, and have the utmost respect for each other. And I was talented enough and motivated enough to learn from him quickly and then become his peer within, certainly probably not even in the beginning of the race was I his peer, but by the end of the race, I was his peer. And as you know, um, um, it would sound conceited to say I'm as talented as him, but I think he would say that, and I would say that to him, vice versa. And the great thing you sail, and is not to get aside, but with Stewie and I, we all have different strengths, and Stu and I play off each other's strengths and
Mm-hmm.
weaknesses. And we understand each other where we can support each other, so it works out really well. But yeah, to do that race and to have those opportunities to learn, and that is the coolest thing about our sport. Here I am. You think I would have learned everything there is to learn about boats, and not every day, but a surprisingly amount of time, I actually am very conscious of like, and I do say this, I'm like, wow, this is cool. I've just learned something new. All right. And it's
Yeah.
still there. And I think that's where you have to be. And I think to be at the top of your game in this sport is an openness to continue to learn and develop and evolve.
Yeah. I think that you learn little things like even selling lasers or whatever. And I did this training with this woman, and we were talking, getting set up on the line, really being head to wind, and all of a sudden my knee was hurting. Like, oh, I'm sitting far enough forward that my knee is hitting the centerboard trunk as I should be.
That's
So
right.
that's something new, but it means I'm doing something right now.
Yes.
So you just certain things like all of a sudden, well, that never happened before. I must have learned something.
Yeah. It's the
Let's zoom
coolest thing about
ahead,
our
sir.
sport.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go,
You finish.
go.
Yeah.
No, you go. Zoom.
I wanted to zoom ahead to 2012,
Mm.
where you start up again in a brand new class, and once again paying attention to this stuff quite strongly. I feel like all the pictures I saw of you in that time, you had a huge smile on your face when you started racing the Star.
Uh, yeah, the star thing started as a bit of a lark of something. I think it's important in the professional sailing world where, yes, I said I'm very fortunate, and I am very fortunate to have great owners and great teammates and great programs. But it's always good to do something for yourself, whether it could be as fun as like you said, doing some laser sailing locally. Um, I've actually did a regatta in the fall Champions of Champions regatta in Vancouver that I was invited to, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm so busy. Do I have time to sail? And then turned out just to be a great opportunity. My daughter's at UBC, and my wife and myself went over, and we actually all crammed in my daughter's 400 square foot little studio apartment, and we lived there for a bunch of days. And I did this regatta, and at the end of that regatta that we won, I kind of walked away and went, yeah, that's like, it's because it was just me and a couple of really, really good local 20-year-olds. And I was like, wow, that was fun. And back to
Where did
the
they race
start
that in?
in the Elliott Sixes at Royal Van.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a
Yeah.
cool event.
Yeah. But I went there with like, dragged my feet to that thing. I'm like, yes, I'll do it because they asked and I feel obliged. And then I walked out and I'm like, I need to do more of that because it's just, yeah, it's you with the tiller in your hand and you're kind of you're calling the shots, I spend a lot of time. Well, only offshore do I drive, but so yeah, inshore I'm doing either tactics or strategy, and yeah, there's just a lot. He's 52. There's lots of people. It's just lots of stuff. Like you do the side of our sports of small boats and just you like in your laser, or like in this Elliott with just the three of us, or with Tyler in the starboat, right? It's smaller. It's just back to the roots of who I was a bit more growing up, junior sailing and those sorts of
Yeah.
things. It just brings back that joy. So yeah, so Tyler had been doing some star sailing, and he just called me up one day and said, "Hey, you want to go to the North Americans in 2010? I guess the fall of 2010." And I was like, "How? Sure, whatever." But yeah, he's gonna get all covered. You just got to go to somewhere in Connecticut. So went down, did that regatta, came second after never even sailing the boat before in the NAs. It was like, well, that was fun, Tyler. Great. See you later. Fly home. And then it was a couple of weeks go by. He's like, do you want to go do Miami Olympic classes regatta? I was like, I'll be in Key West anyway the week before racing. Yeah, sounds sort of convenient. Go do Miami Olympic class regatta, come third. I'm like, wow, this is really fun. This is really like, not that doing well is fun, but it does add to the enjoyment if you're competitive. And then
Yep.
she said to me, yeah, the Western Hemispheres are in Nassau in a couple of weeks. You want to go to those? So I was like, well, I think I can squeeze those into my schedule. We go to the Western Hemispheres and we win that. It's like, oh
In
dear.
Nassau, Bahamas, like, hey, it's an easy question.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we started off pretty strong with that. And yeah, did a couple of years. And as my wife, she's like, at one point, as we got pretty deep into the sailing, she's like, are you doing another Olympic campaign? Oh, no, no, I'm just sailing with my buddy Tyler. Well, yeah, sure enough, it turned into an Olympic campaign with my buddy Tyler, and yeah, it was hard. It was probably the wrong time in my life to do that. Trying to be a professional sailor and keep my professional contracts and honor those, and make a living,
Hmm.
and help do my side of contributing to the family's bank account. I think, and
Right.
having a young child, Zoe at that point was 6, 7 years old, and
Mm, mm.
yeah, I think in 2011 I was away 300 days, and that's not good for anybody's health or marriage at that
Yeah. Yeah,
point.
yeah.
And yeah, my daughter was having some health issues, which didn't help. And I think there were two incidences in my life where I've been very selfish and in my relationship with my family, and that was the second time.
Mm,
So,
mm.
yeah, yeah. Luckily, we've moved past that. Andrew and I, but yeah, it was hard. It was really hard in Andrew, and it just wasn't quite probably fair what I was, you know,
Mm,
trying
mm.
to achieve. But my wife called just to finish. My wife calls me an Olympic addict when so the
Well,
hilarious thing, what was it, when
you
were they going
know,
to do the double-headed offshore as an
yeah,
Olympic class, right? I was like, oh, oh,
that
oh, oh,
was,
oh, oh, I got another
yeah,
chance. Oh, I got another chance. And so I was like, how am I going to get this by, how's Andrea going to support this? I was like, she could sail with me because we met sailing and she's a sailor. So
it's
I was
a
like, she could sail with
double-handed
me.
mixed,
Yes,
yeah.
double mixed offshore with my wife. She was like, you're high. What are you doing? There's no way.
um, all right, so now you wanted to give me the story of the actual games, So
Oh
there's
no,
no just
we're here we
scripting
are already. I'm looking at the clock right now. hour 10 in. Yeah, for me, and Tyler, certainly we would, back to the betting side of things. I don't think we would have been, maybe a dark horse chance. When our early successes were when a lot of the guys in the class were sort of stepped away, and then as more of the sort of class stalwarts and top level guys came back in, we were at best probably a six to maybe a 5 to 6, 5 to 8 team, and yeah, coming 11th was certainly yet another Olympic disappointment. But we had higher hopes for sure. Tyler and I, we in our heart of hearts thought we could be a dark horse, and yeah, yeah, I think for me, it certainly came, the mental skeletons in my closet found their way to wreak it, squirrel their way into my brain again. And
mm,
yeah, I didn't sail. One of the things that I did, sailing loose was one of the things I learned. We missed 2004 and all this, and the story in 2004 is I was giving up and put my Olympic boots aside, my professional sailing cap on, and I was moving on from Olympics, and I just had a sniff of an opportunity to go to the 2004 Finn Worlds in Rio. And there you go. I was Philippe Kahn's training partner in Rio with very little preparation. We just flew the boats in, and I came second at those Worlds to Ben Ainsley in the year of the Olympics. And I was like, I still got it, but I sailed loose. I sailed as zero pressure. I was there as I was actually working. I was there as being a professional sailor, a training partner to my client, Philippe Kahn. And I came second at the Worlds. And it was like that was almost like if I needed an epiphany of how Richard Clark sails best, it was that moment. Just took me a
mm.
few more years to really learn that. And I can't help myself, but, you know, just be a, to put like I said, it's internal pressure I put up on myself. So when that's gone, I
Mm,
sail,
mm.
or when that can be alleviated, I sail better. So, anyways, no more Olympics. What's next? No.
You're obviously like ridiculously busy. We were trying to get this set up. It was even like you were in Australia. You were coaching 8 Echelon 22s. You were in doing TP 52s somewhere on the West Coast. But you've got a project that you're working on right now that's kind of your own thing, and I wanted to just talk about what you're working on right now, kind of personally.
Well, yeah, personally, I have a, a new dream that I'm trying to get some traction and having some struggles and some roadblocks through it all. But I think where we are is in a sport, and where we are as a global economy, and I use the word climate, and it's not necessarily referring to climate change. It's just referring of where we are of things and needs, and whether it's climate change or waste reduction, just be more conscious, in all the products that we buy and consume, and I look at sailing and sailboats and boats, also power boats, and in the manufacturing and construction of boats, it's still very not green and not sustainable,
Hmm.
at least if we're hoping for a better future for our children and our planet. Right now, when any even not even high performance, but anything that's vacuum infused or anything that involves using some sort of infusion process, which most fiberglass boats are still built using, there's a massive amount of plastic waste. And even talking to a lot of my boat builder friends and short teams of programs that I'm on, and I start talking about my idea, they're just like, yes, we use discard so much waste and unrecyclable or reusable waste in particularly plastic and breather fabrics and peel ply and hosing, and if you look at any boat in any marina that's been built in the last 20 years, you can look at an associated pile of plastic that is the equivalent of 3 to 4 times the size of that boat. And I've, through an opportunity and a contact, have come up with this idea of trying to become the first truly sustainable boat building company in the world. And there are plenty of companies out there that are using greener materials in their construction, but they're still using vacuum infusion. And the trick to the whole thing that will involve a little bit of R&D and obviously capital is to, and we have a few ideas. We have not been able to test them yet, but to build a boat without the bag that's high performance or performance enough, and use it with sustainable materials. So the materials are out there. Sustainable materials are out there. We can build a better fiberglass, a boat that's better than fiberglass, and have it be with less emissions in actually the manufacturing of the fiber and the boat itself, and then have no if we can have no waste. And that's the kicker with this project, is to build a boat with no waste or less waste, and then we'd be the first true green boat construction boat building company in the world. And that's the dream. And then of course my dream spirals off into all sorts of other ambitious, what to build. We could build anything from kayaks to paddleboards to motorboats to sailboats, anything within the restraints of the fiber. Carbon fiber is still always going to be carbon. There's nothing better out there than carbon. But if we're looking at about probably sub 45, 43 feet, and the plan is to try and start with a sailboat, start with a racing type sailboat. Interesting right now to look at the Admiral's Cup and look at the boats that are the chosen boat for the small boat, the class 2 boat, whatever they're calling it, the sort of 40-ish footer, and the amount of used GP42s and fast 40s. And there's actually, funnily enough, there's very few new builds are cropping up in that scene. And yeah, the new XR41 and Swan 43. There's the Matt 1220. You can tell I'm quite versed in what's going to be in this.
Yeah, you're keeping your eyes on that one.
Yeah, landscape that we want to sort of launch a product into. It would be cool, and I have a lot of things, and then we have talked about technology, and there's I've been talking to a few people that were involved in last America's Cup when we talk about the trimming technologies and things that we can actually get trickle down from what the automation and on the trimming side of trimming your sails and setting those things up. We want to put a lot of that technology into this project as well. And then we also talk about the green energy side of things and electric propulsion and regeneration and those sorts of things, and making so we quite what I have in my mind. It doesn't exist, and I want to be the first to exist it, to make it actually a thing. Where I need help is I've been very much just me and smiling up in here spiraling away, and I want to get it out there, but to get it out there you need to put a business plan together, and I don't have the business background. I'd be the first person that would start this thing and bankrupt it in probably 6 months and not get it off the ground. So where I need right now is some sort of partnership and support, and I've reached out to a few individuals, and like I said, I've sort of on the boat building side to come up to understand that my ideas aren't crazy and they actually are achievable. But I still need, eventually at some point, if we're going to set up shop, where are we going to set up shop? Well, I need investors, right? We need a couple $1 million to get this thing off the ground. I'd love to do it in Canada because there's lots of also money within our country for entrepreneurial green startup.
Yeah.
And plus both our coasts, your side and my side, have this blue economy initiatives. So the coasts are dying. Our coastal economies are fading away as trade and even mills and other things shut down. That they're trying to get more businesses, and obviously building sailboats would fall into that, and it would fall into building green sailboats. But yeah, so if you're a young boat builder or business student and you're looking for your first project, reach out to me. You can find me on social media pretty easily enough. So DM me and let's do this, right? And if you got a couple million bucks and you got a couple $1 million and you're a green-minded investor, well, we might need some help. There we go.
All right. It's called? BlackRock Boats is what you're calling it?
That's what I'd love to call it, because the fiber we're thinking about using is basalt fiber, and basalt fiber is kind of black. It's kind of rusty black, but yeah, okay. And it's made from rock. So BlackRock Boats would be a cool little slant on it.
I like it. It rolls off the tongue, and it sounds fast.
We'll make it. Fast is the easy part.
Yeah. So I like to end with these three big questions. And the first one is, Richard, what do you love about sailing?
Well, what I love about sailing and what we've talked about earlier is I love the fact that I'm 56 years old and I'm learning still in a sport that I've been in my entire life. It challenges me. It makes me use my experience and my knowledge and things that I've had before, but it always will um, teach me new things. And I love being involved with newer classes. Like I've just got involved in the last 6 months in a Cape 31 project with the Warrior One owner, and I'm having just the best time because I think there's a lot in the tank there in terms of rig tune and development and sail design, and so that's I love those. I love maybe I'd say I love developing speed and. Obviously, I guess even from our conversation earlier with the mad tinkering in my Olympics, a lot of those haven't gone the right way. But I guess, yeah, you got to break a few eggs before you make an omelet. And but yeah, I love the sport that it challenges me and it continues to push and it continues to yeah be a great it's sport that I continue to learn and be challenged.
That's awesome. And what are you most proud of so far in your career?
I am proud of 56 and I'm still relevant. That's actually an odd one to say, but yeah, I think uh,
You
a
should be.
bit a bit of it is I think I'm going to age out at some point, and I guess with any in any sport, right? In any sport performance, you have to be continued to perform. And once you we can look at athletes that are getting into the end of their career, whether it's Brady in the end of his days, or Fernando Alonso who's still driving Formula One, and or LeBron James. We can go through any sport, and there's athletes in there that continue to defy age and continue to perform at a very, very high level. And I'm very proud at 56 that I continue to defy age, although there are plenty of good older sailors still, but continue to be
Hmm.
relevant and successful. But I only continue to be relevant if I continue to be successful. And I have again, the opportunity and privilege to be involved with really good programs that obviously help to continue that success. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that performance legacy that I have come from and developed over all those years. I'm proud of being a 4/5 time Olympian. I'm proud of that I think ultimately if the sort of thing is I'm really actually proud of my record of the last 10 years of sailing. The last 10 years of sailing have been my
Mm.
best years. And if I can have at 56, the last 10 years being better than the 10 years before that, that's an accomplishment.
That is absolutely right. You should be super proud of that. I've thought a lot about or talked a lot about different pathways into this industry, into this sport, and of course, we all like go to the Olympics, make the medal race the second time you go to the Olympics. Now you can be a pro sailor, whatever it is, right? But there obviously are so many more pathways. People that never were ever in an opti are out there in the world, like making a living in our sport. So, what kind of advice would you give somebody starting out that would like to, make a career out of being a professional sailor or in the industry?
Well, being getting into the industry is hard, particularly in Canada, right? It's we don't have a lot of um, top level programs in this country that are traveling internationally in the bigger boat where there's obviously the bigger boat there's more opportunities. So in the bigger boat size of things, uh, so as a Canadian, and I've actually mentored a few young Canadians, and the first thing I tell them is unfortunately to leave this country and to set up base in um, a more of a sailing hotbed. There's more just opportunities, seen and be seen is step number one. So whether it's Newport, Rhode Island, or whether it's send a kid to Sydney, Australia, places you just have to go where as a professional, young aspiring, because you're not going to start as a professional, you're going to start still as an amateur, just basically walking the dock and hanging your hat and trying to get on any boat possible. But then, yeah, within the scope of it, the first any opportunity that you get, Rule number one: first to show up, last to leave. Do any job, anything that needs to be done. If you're the bowman, you're still going to be preparing sales and doing battens and flaking, and helping. Will you help wherever you can, wherever there's a need, right? And so yeah, first to leave, last, first to show up, last to leave. There's no job too small. Help anywhere that you can. Work is, like you said, I'll lick the bilge. I would lick the bilge dry if I had to when I was my first opportunities. Whatever it takes. And then the other thing is you have to bring a secondary skill at this day and age, and that's the other way to get introductions to boats, whether it's servicing winches, hydraulics, sailmaking, rigging, even you want to actually make a career in yachting right now. Electronics, selling electronics and servicing electronics. Right now, if I want anything from B&G, there's two people in this continent that I can go to. And I'm not just talking buying. I'm talking about proper high-end support and programming. There's basically, in my opinion, only two people that are worth going to. And yes, there's a huge need. So if you can bring something else, and next thing you know, yeah, you're sailing on a boat and you can service the winches and you can splice. Well, now all of a sudden you become of value and you increase your value, and you have to continue to increase your value and continue to increase your face time before you can even charge for a day of work.
Right, right. Well, you heard it here, kids. Get off your hiking bench and learn how to do electronics.
Yes, selling electronics, I tell you, and particularly where we're going and how this is going to explode with AI over the next little while. It's going to be a very fascinating spot in our sport. And if you want to go back to BlackRock Boats, that's where we are going to do a ton of development and turn a ton of heads. Yeah, imagine a boat with no tiller, no wheel, right? We don't need those anymore, right? We can have AI
awesome.
trim our sails for us. We can put our feet up and drink cocktails on our super fast, sporty cruising boat while AI just gets us from one place to there. And this will make people's eyes roll and heads up. Oh, what sailing is? Well, you're right. You know what? It might not be, Black Rat boat might not be the boat for you, but you want to get there fast and be the first one to drop your anchor in the moorage and do it all while the boat does it itself. And yeah, you're going to have to put your sails up and down. We're not talking about reducing your involvement at all, but you'll get there fast and you'll have so much fun.
With that image in mind, Richard Clark, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure, Dave. I'm glad you finally had me on.
So until next time, have fun, make friends, and sail fast. I'll see you on the water.